These are the release notes for version 1.09 of the Android game synSpace Drone Runners, available in Google Play and for the Kindle Fire HD. This is mostly a bug fix release. There were changes to Android itself that made the previous version, well, not run at all on your machine, especially if your tablet was a Samsung tablet. So version 1.09 is being released today just to get past that, because it's pretty frustrating to, spend a couple bucks on a game and have it immediately not work. So we need to accelerate the release. However, 1.09 includes many new features that are part of a larger vision, which is not yet fulfilled in this release. So it is possible for you to stray into areas of the design that are not ready for prime time. Version 1.09 is mostly the same game as it was before. So you pick a thumb color. I'm now the red player. You can pick or design your own face. Actually, let's design it. Let's make a face like that, only with a more pronounced nose. So let's pick a darker color, and then let's give him a really strong nose shadow. Okay, that's it. So now we'll clone and save. We'll call it face 24 lowercase b. Okay, so we made a new face, face 24b, and we're going to use it. And so now we're using the new face. We can do the same thing for the shell. We could edit the shell, which the circles can be dragged around. Okay, the squares can be dragged until they break, at which point you get a circle and two new squares. And you can break them, and you can break them, and you just keep doing that to get as many of the points as you want, and then you drag them until you get them in the place that you want them to be, and then you clone and save, and I'm not going to. You can't save on top of something. If you've already got an asset, you can't modify it. Ship 003 looks like this. I can change it and clone it and give it a new name and save that, but I can't modify a previously named thing. And then here I basically start off my ship with engines, shields, and weapon pods. And the more, if I put most of it into shields, I only get 6 pods at the start. Then I'll have good shields, but I'll have crap weapons and engine. If you tap on the word, it gives you more of that thing. If you tap kind of in the triangle, it just sets this pyramid to whatever shape makes sense, and then it apportions the pods relative to the area. It's a little weird, but it's a game within a game. Anyway, you assign your initial pod allocations, and then you launch your drone. So in grid space, when you're driving a shell ship, which is these little vector-based things, you use the actual control and you rotate to face a direction, and then you drag forward to apply forward velocity in that direction, or backwards to apply reverse velocity in that direction. And just to cut to the chase, because you can do it on this star map, that little dot there that's getting bigger, that's a gravity detector. It's detecting the gravity of this planet. So I'm being sucked into that planet, and if I stop kind of close to it, boop, then I get sucked in completely, and now I'm in orbit around the planet. But anyway, that's how you would normally get into planet mode. You're in high orbit over the planet, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So, assuming you don't have this new map, you won't be able to visit the planet directly. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a shell ship and get into grid space, because it's space and it's the grid. We're in our shell ship, and we can steer it, and we can drive it around, and I'm just going to stop it. Okay, so next I tap on the options button in the lower right. I select the general options, and I scroll all the way to the bottom, and then I select the Super Fun Time Power Show. And this gives me a new menu along the very top here. And you can see it has a little back arrow. If I tap that, it'll step out of the Super Fun Power Show, and I'll be back into regular gameplay. Or I can pick one of these categories: star maps, critters, shells, faces, music. And the idea is that this should ultimately be a list of all the different asset types that you can edit. And so to that degree, shells, faces, and music take you to the existing editors that you already know about. But star maps takes you to an editor that is not populated at all yet, so that will be no fun. And critters takes you to the new stick figure pose animator, which is one of the new features available in version 1.09, but really not fun until version 1.10. Okay, so just to walk through what you can do with critters, basically the idea is that you can define a skeleton, you know, the bones, so how many legs and arms and whatever that your critter has. There's no skin yet, there's no shell that surrounds the critter with a nice little painting of a monkey or something. There's just the line segments that indicate the bones of your critter. So I'm going to tap on critters. Boom. So now we get a different menu which has the same word critters, which is now kind of reminding you that you're in the critters subpanel, but that offers additional choices for bones, skin, pose, animate, arena, and scene. And it's already got arena selected, which is the on-planet view. So this is how you could view the planet today, in version 1.09. But you don't have your controls, so you can't really walk around and do anything like you could if you were really walking around on the planet. It's got sort of a standard base defined, which is really just as a means of showing these primitive shapes that I have. And then I have a simple flora system that drops these random objects all over the map. And the idea is that the star map will ultimately be able to control what sorts of things get dropped and what interactions they support. And some of them, maybe just the player can chop down a tree and end up with some wood resource in his inventory. But others might be more complicated things. This is an example of a claim dome. But the idea here is that I've claimed this area for my client, and it's building an atmosphere and a vegetation that will be friendly to certain critters, because we're trying to terraform the planet. In this star map, we're trying to terraform the planet for the benefit of clients. And there may be more than one client, and they may have conflicting needs, and one person might want an oxygen atmosphere, and someone else might want a methane atmosphere. Anyway, that's all in the future, version 1.10. But here, in the critters panel, arena is one way of just kind of seeing the world, but it's not a particularly useful way right now. The scene button really does nothing. The skin button does nothing. But everything else does something. So we go back to the critters button. This basically is the critter chooser screen. And the idea is that down along the bottom here is something I call the treadmill. On this screen, on the critter screen, the treadmill is fixed with just 8 slots. They're called work slots. Work slot 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 0 through 7 is 8 total. If you drag just, in the window without touching anything, you can change your camera angle. Okay, when I tapped in the main window and started to move the scroll around, the treadmill minimized. So what happened to all those other critters that were there? Well, they all disappeared. And it's just showing me the one that I'm currently working on, which is workspace 7. And it reminds me up here that I'm working on workspace 7. Each workspace has a name, which just are random names that start with the first 7 letters of the alphabet. But if I want to see the treadmill again, I tap on the entry that was in the corner there, and now I see the full treadmill. If I do that, you can step through them. Ooh. See, they don't have to have 2 legs or 4 legs. Okay, well, let's do this guy. He'll be fun. Once you've selected the workspace, you switch to the Bones panel, and now you're looking at Gerald's Bones. And this panel is the panel you use to change the skeleton. This is the default pose for the skeleton. So that's the bones. Next, I click on the Pose button. You notice he changes to a different style of display to kind of help remember. Okay, and now down here at the bottom is the treadmill still. I see that it's got 64 pose slots. So let's pretend we're going to do an animation, and we're going to plan ahead of time that it's going to have 3 images in it. They're going to be poses 20, 21, and 22. Okay, so pose 21, which is going to be the second frame of our animation. In this one, we will just move this leg forward, his left front knee. Then I look at it completely sideways, and then up here in the proxy box, any finger movements that I do in the proxy box will be applied to the highlighted node. So if I move straight to the left, I see it moving straight to the left from this view. But if I scan up above, I can see that what it did was it tried to move it straight forward, and it kind of had to arc in because otherwise the bone would have gotten longer. But anyway, we go back to our third pose. Let's just do the opposite. So this one goes back, and this one, I don't know, does it go forward? I forget. So now I tap on the Animate tab. So let's say I'm going to make animation number 20. So I select animation number 20. Go back to the Pose screen, and I long hold this one called Key. And it kind of flickers when it takes effect. Now I go back to Animate, and my timeline now appears, and I see that I have Pose 20 on my timeline, and that's all. Okay, so now I go back to Pose, and I select Pose 21, and I long press keyframe, plonk, and then I add Pose 22, long press. Boop. Now I go back to Animate, and I bring up the timeline, and now we see the timeline has 3 keyframes on it, and they are Pose 20, Pose 21, and Pose 22. And now, as time goes by, it's just in a loop, we see my animation playing out. If we pause it, if I tap here, we can see frame 20, Pose 21, Pose 22. And if I tap in the middle between Pose 20 and Pose 21, if I tap in the middle, I can see any spot in between. And so at some point, the script will be able to say, please play animation 20. And I'm thinking I might want a scene thing where you would basically do set dressings. You'd be making physical objects and putting a campfire here and a rock here and a tent there and some stuff like that, and save it in some way that you can reuse it later so that you can go to the arena, you go to the world, walk around and drop one of these campsites like there, and it drops 17 things all at once, and then I go somewhere else and drop another copy of it. I think the idea is that Arena has to be working on a copy of a world that is under your control. Like, for example, say I wanted to have a new fractal, like I was bored with this dirt. I can just long press the fractal button, and it's affecting the dirt for me, but it's not affecting the dirt for anyone else. But what it should be doing is affecting the dirt for me and remembering the effect, remembering the new random seed, so that when I go back over here to the star maps button, I can somehow include that and automatically edit something in my star map so that it will use that seed value. So here is a critter. If I long press demo, and I'll do it a few times, in theory I just added 3 of these critters to the arena. And there's one. There they are. Wow, boy, these really remind me of some dead spiders I saw once as a kid. You make critters, you add them to the world, they can walk around. So next is the 3D on-planet experiences. And again, you really need a matching star map, and I happen to have one. So I am going to be able to do this. If I plow into this planet, then it puts me into orbit. You are now in a critter. You were in a shell ship. You're now in a critter. And in fact, right now, you're in whatever critter you've got in Workspace 1. From there, you'll do the normal clone operation, which will create an official asset. And then that becomes a named asset, which you can trade and share with other players. Other people can base their work starting with that asset and making changes to it. But right now, all the players, when they get into planetary mode, are represented by this little biped guy. We're up high above the planet, which you'll see has clouds. That's a cloud. It's a bunch of clouds. And there's a climate system and a time of day. So if I kind of turn like this, you'll see that it's nighttime right now. Okay, it's sunrise. Sun's coming up from over there. Now it's coming up on noon. So now it's noon. And now it's sunset. All right. And now it's nighttime again. So it only takes like a minute for a complete day cycle. But there's an actual sun that crosses the planet in that time, and it heats the water, and that causes the water to boil off clouds, and then that creates winds, and then things move around, and eventually you see some cloud patterns. And I hope to have a sailboat simulator at some point. I do have an aircraft simulator, a flight simulator, that is affected by the wind. Okay, so we are in orbit, so we're at a very high altitude, which is not that high. We're at 2,000 meters, and we have something called a gravity damper, so we're not falling. And we can hit the stop button and stop, and now we're just stopped over a point on the ground. And if while stopped, if I zoom in, pinch zoom, I'm actually, kilometers away from this thing, but I can see it down below me. If I want to get down there, I have to turn off my gravity damper, and the way I do that is I long press the stop button. It then asks me if that's really what I want to do, and I say yes. Now, it has the option of letting me just fall as a critter, or I can fall as some sort of vehicle, and right now I've got it set to have me fall as basically a Cessna airplane. And we are currently in a stall. There, we just engaged with laminar flow, and now I can pull back, pull back, pull back. Okay, and so now my plane is flying around. There's some clouds. And we're going to bring it down closer to the ground. But this terrain, it tiles, so if we go around the world, okay, I'm going to push the camera button to get the camera directly behind the airplane. So now as I steer the airplane, as I actually start to turn, oh, I pushed it twice. As I actually turn, we see the camera going right along with it. And I can move the camera, but only up and down. if I really want to move the camera side to side and look at my plane from different angles, I can do it, but I have to pull way to the side before it breaks the lock. Now it's completely free, and if I steer now, it doesn't track the plane. So I can turn completely around. Can this work? To some degree, I'm just hurtling backwards, but I think I'm already recovered from that. I lost a lot of lift though, so I'm crashing, but let's see how we're doing. Okay. So anyway, it flies more or less like a Cessna. Okay, I'm putting the camera behind it again. Oh man. I'm going down. I'm going down. Ah. Of course, I'm only at 50% throttle. When you're near the ground, you see this stuff that someday will be trees and things. And basically, it just automatically populates the map with up to 1 million objects that everybody agrees that these particular objects are at these particular locations without having to send a lot of data back and forth. Because the star map shared a single random seed value, and then everybody used the same repeatable random number sequence, pseudo-random number sequence, and we all see the same trees. Now, they don't do anything yet, but the idea is to be able to, collect resources and have a crafting system, a simple one. And then to build and buy things like this item here, which is called a Cessna overcoat. And the Cessna overcoat itself is what I call an arrow, where each of these shapes, like the right wing, the left wing, the right elevator, the left elevator, the rudder, each of those is 4 points, and I call it an arrow. And basically, I have a little flight simulator engine that computes forces from all your arrows and then applies rotational torque around your center of mass and figures out your lift and such, and you fly, more or less. And in addition to your throttle over here, which we'll put it to 100%, so we'll be able to take off. And no matter how many times you smack the ground, you'll throw off sparks, but it won't destroy you. It will eventually. I will eventually make it so that you actually have to steer on purpose. Right now you could pretend steer. You can just say, oh, I'm going to run into that. And honestly, as little mini games go, just driving around crazy, bouncing around on the terrain and smashing things until you collect wood or something. That's close to fun. Or, specifically trying to avoid running into the bigger, heavier things, which maybe hurt you. But, okay. But I've now gotten into the air. And again, the idea is that with a pencil and paper, you can design an airplane with very few numbers, and then you write those numbers down in a string in a particular format, just number, comma, number, comma, number, and then you paste that into your star map, and your airplane design is now available to anyone who gets a copy of your star map. This is an airplane, and I don't know if I've shown you, but my critter is wearing it. It's a Cessna overcoat. And in theory, the plane is telling the critter, please use animation number whatever, which is the animation to use when flying a vehicle in a seated position. So this should be holding a pose of me in a seated position, and furthermore, any G-forces I encounter, like if I turn like this way, there should be forces causing my legs to swing out to the left. So that's not working. And but anyway, so in 1.09 you have this airplane experience you can have. And have I said the word fractal yet? This terrain is fractal terrain. And again, a single random seed value is used to generate it. And you can, in your star map, pick any number you want for that and get a different random terrain. And ditto for the climate simulation and the flora simulation. And I think that's it. I think that's the short description of all of the basic new functionality. There aren't really weapons yet. I mean, I can shoot little triangles, I think. Yeah, there they are. They're falling to the ground. They're staying in front of me. Oh, that's cool. If I turn, they won't turn with me. I can leave them behind. So I threw them off there. That's kind of neat. Not really a missile. Anyway, I want to have lots of interesting little things to do. Like that might be, that thing they do, crop dusting. And I can fly underwater, which I really like. And at the very base of the ocean, it tends to be very flat, so it's a nice place for runways and things. And in this release, every map starts with that claim dome pretty much near the center of the map. And what's called a clearing, where I, after calculating the fractal terrain map elevations, I can then sand down any spot I like to make it as flat as I need it to be. And I'm making one flat circle in the center of the map at 200 meters elevation, which also tends to make some interesting cliffs to run into. Now down here on this surface color, oh yeah, I try to make the shadows nice, so they lengthen. And then at noon, they're straight down, so they're kind of small. And then as it goes into sunset, they lengthen on the other side. And then as the sun sets, all the light goes away and the shadow disappears completely. Shadow disappears completely. Thank you. And it's not quite in phase yet. And then eventually it starts to be sunrise. And at the moment the sun breaks the horizon, we immediately start off with long shadows in the opposite direction there. So that was the moment of sunrise. And then they get shorter as the day grows. So anyway, that's where I'm headed with that. Over here we have the angle of attack meter, which if I pull back, you can see how it went up, it went up. 18 degrees, 19 degrees. Okay, I got a stall warning, 22 degrees, and I am in fact stalled. You can tap on this control. If you tap in the lower half or the upper half, you're moving your flaps down or up. And there's 4 different settings. So when you are at 30 degrees flap, you have a lot of lift. So I can just fly straight up into the sky at 100% throttle, or I can stay aloft with like 50% throttle. There's that, and then there's also trim, that you can move your joystick just in real time any way you like it. But if you tap the joystick, you can see there's something happening here on the right. This is your elevator trim, and left and right is your rudder trim. And I made it so that if you actually hit the ground, I reset your trim. Okay, so I'm going 92 degrees, and I'm going to do forward trim. And that should allow me to go faster because I'll be more level, and going faster I'll get more lift, but I did not get enough lift, and the mountain rose up to meet me. And the mini-map has 3 states. It has the normal game mode, it has the extended editor mode, and it has the minimized mode. Okay, along the top here we have the flight compass. It tells us that we're currently going 92 knots and our heading is 297 degrees. We are 630 meters above sea level. Then down below here we see these little circles that are these little white circles, these hollow white circles. That's a wind direction indicator. The wind is a little to the west of north, but that's the hollow circle, so that's the wind behind us. So if we turn until these little circles are right lined up with our nose, these are the solid circles, so we're now flying into the wind. Oh, the wind just changed. And we move pretty far and the wind changes a lot, so it's going to jump around. Then there's also turbulence. Let's jump our power to 50%-ish. And if you just watch it, you can see that the plane shakes a little just from turbulence. These vertical lines are force lines. This sort of orange line points forward. The purple line is the normal to the wing, to the aero surface. The blue and green lines are the lift, although I think it's lift plus drag. Yeah, the drag is opposite to this orange line. You can see a little bit of drag line right there. And right now the little man is just glued to the plane, so when the plane rotates, the little man rotates. But I want to have him more decoupled so that he can, swing from a harness or something. And that's it. These controls, the throttle and the angle of attack, they only are there when you are flying an airplane. To get out of an airplane, you long press stop button again. It gives you the opportunity to get out of your plane and be on foot. So we're still at 1,000 meters altitude, but now we're falling. We have no gravity damper. So we're just going to hit the ground. And bang. And we're still going 70 knots. So let's tap the camera to get it behind us. Okay. And now we're going to adjust our angle. Okay, so there are also a couple of other things that have changed. The social modes are controlled in the options. In the general options, there's a thing called show piano in social, and if you set it to show, then you'll get this piano button. And if you open the piano button, you can play the piano. One thing that's changed is I now support stereo in the playback, and the idea is that each instrument has a location in the scene, left, right, and each note has a location, left, right, relative to the instrument's location. So all the low notes come out of the left ear speaker more, and all the high notes come out of the right ear speaker more. And if you're playing two notes at once, they have different stereo locations maybe. And with earbuds, you can hear it, and it's a good thing. So that's one new thing. Okay, in the sequencer, one of the things it's always had is this thing called loops, where you have 15 loops, and they were used to be in a square grid of 3x5. And now it's a hexagonal grid of 3x5. The idea is if you unlock the loops, lock icon, and then pick a loop that you want to edit, if you just start playing, you can see it's moving along, and it'll play into whatever hole is lit up when you get there. Or you can select a hole and it stays selected. That's new. Used to be you had to hold your finger down. I'm trying to get away from situations where you have to do two hands at the same time, because it's just it's just one more opportunity to drop your device. Anyway, so I pick that slot and then I decide what I'm going to do, and I'm going to play in the key of C. So I'm just going to play a C in the first slot. Okay, and what I'll do is I will just play a C on the beat. Okay, now that is loop 1. Now I go to loop 2, and maybe I'll play an E, and I'll play it off the beat. And we'll just do 3 of the 4. Okay, now I'll pick loop 3, and I'll do G. That's G, right? Yeah. And for this one, I'll do it kind of like that, and then pause, and then that one, and that one. Okay, so now I have a little groove going, so now I'll lock them. So now I can't change them by accident. And if I just tap them, they turn on and off. So now if I want to play a song, I can start one, and then start another one, and then start another one, and turn it off, and turn it off, and turn it on, and turn them all off, and now the song's over. Okay, so that's one thing I can do. I can record some more. I can start these, and then I can just start playing things in the key of C that I think might sound nice. I just pick a different loop and then just start playing things that I think it might sound nice. So I don't like what I did there, so I'm going to long press, and it deletes it. And that's getting kind of hard to sound here, so I'm going to turn some of these off, and then go back to the one I want to record and just add some more. Actually, let's switch to a different instrument. Okay, bass guitar sound. So we go back to loops, we go to this new one, and we unlock them. I don't like that one. I'll have another instrument. I don't like that. Let's go up an octave. Okay, so let's lock it again, and we'll turn some off. Okay, so we can just, have fun turning on different things. And if you want to think about it ahead of time, you can actually plan it out so that they sound good in a particular order. Okay, so that's pretty much the way they used to work, other than now you don't have to hold your finger down to program it. But here's something you can do that's new. I can say this one here is just 4 notes. Well, it's 16 note slots, and then it repeats. If I start here and drag to the right, the little icon in the center changed to an arrow pointing to the right. And what's going to happen now is it's going to play one turn of this circle, and then it's going to trigger this guy who's going to do one turn of his circle, and then he's going to want to loop back, but since he got there by this guy, he's not going to loop back to his own beginning, he's going to loop back to the beginning of this guy, and these two guys now are a 2 sequence step. So instead of being 16 note slots, it's now 32 note slots before it repeats. The first one, back to the first one. Now you can do that as much as you like. So now I've got 4 of them chained together. Okay, but maybe that's not what I want. Maybe what I want is I want this one to loop into that one, 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 and this one to loop into that one. So now I have 5 loops that are each extended by 1. So now I have 5 32-point loops. I can also do crazy stuff like this one can link to that one can link to that one, and that one can link to that one. So this gives me a 3-loop sequence. If I wanted a 4-loop sequence, I could do that, although then I'd want to do something like that. And again, if you think about it and plan it out, maybe you could make something interesting. Or if nothing else, you can make something that's sort of semi-random and it has an arbitrarily long cycle time. Now, by arbitrarily long, if you unlock it, you can see that when I select one of these guys, whatever icon it has in the center also appears over here. So in the last slot, it shows you what it does when it gets to that slot. Now what I can do is I can drag from there to there. I edited this one to stop at the 9th. So this is now only a 9-slot thing instead of a 16-slot thing. So if I start it, well, it's still part of that other loop as well. I'm going to drag it back. The real purpose of this is so that you can drag it to 12 so you can do 3, 4 times. Anyway, so there's a few different operations and there's a direction, and then you can steer your way through the loops, and they'll just keep going until you stop them. Now it's a little challenging to stop them all, and I probably should both have a button to do that, and also when you're doing a recording, it should probably turn things off automatically if you don't. And these, of course, are all affected by the current rhythm, current beats per minute. So if I just increase that, then these will go faster as well. Let's do that about 100. Okay, so now let's stop them all again. Okay, we'll push record. Actually, let's get a new instrument, brass, something that I can do slowly. And we'll make it loud. Okay, so now we go back to loops and we start recording a song. And Yeah, this is a little different, but I don't think I can really demonstrate it in a way that will be impressive. But if you use the vocoder to make a vocoding, which results in a bunch of notes being written to a groove channel, if you then open the track editor, the enlarged track editor, at maximum zoom, it will now superimpose the original spectral recording data on the derived notes data. And you can get an idea for, amongst other things, whether or not you need to, reduce or increase the gain on the vocoding to get a good registration. It's not perfect, but it's more information than you had before. So it's a tool in your arsenal. And that's it. That is the version 1.09 release notes.